Hold on. So this is the ninth Knowledge Seekers Workshop with Mayran Kesh and the Knowledge Seekers from the Spaceship Institute. And we'll get right into it here with connecting with them and seeing what's going on at the Spaceship Institute for this week's excitement. Okay, what's happening there, you guys?
So hello, good day to everybody. Marek speaking. Uh, we have made some progress in the lab in a way which may not be so visible to you because we took some reactors out and made some redesign on it and some reparations. So that we could stop leaking and we could add other reactors because the first of all the Armens and mine reactor stopped rotating, so that's why we have changed the motor. Then we have changed its top board, top plate, which is holding it in rotation axis, because this top plate was given to Marco. He needed some bearings, so we shared. So we have split it to two halves, and Marco has now a new reactor. He will talk about it later, and our system has to be redesigned a little bit so that it it can work with new top plates which were added to it to keep it in rotation axis. And now it seems everything is okay. It's a little bit shaking. Maybe it wants to dance because it likes good rhythm, and in this way, it, it is enjoying its position in the formation. So actually, everybody was working and helping each other because there were many reactors disassembled and assembled again to fix some problems we had. And now we have the formation in a more full formation. How many reactors? 6? 7 reactors. One in the middle, it's still that power generator prototype with 3 cores in the center. And now we have 6 generators or receivers around in a circle around it. So all are at the same distance from the center now, and we try to pressurize the central plasma to awaken it a little. And yesterday we have reloaded most of the reactors with the gas, but the central one is still keeps good conditions. It's quite stable and holds plasma. So there are actually 3 cores in it, and in inner core and middle core is actually connected. They are not separated in a way that they hold the same vacuum. but the central core is to allow the plasma to be centralized better as a black hole space. So in this core we should have plasma, and in the outer core as well. And so this reactor is keeping good work. It's still, let's say, on not yet fully awakened, but it's quite steady. So the reactors around were reloaded, with most of them with hydrogen, or actually three of them with hydrogen only, and how many with multilayers? Three. And another three with multilayering of three gases. So you have argon at the outer layer, helium at the middle. Oh, sorry, nitrogen in the middle, and hydrogen, helium then near the center, and hydrogen in the middle. So in this way we have four gases there to make multi-layering. So we reloaded it with this configuration yesterday, and all of them are rotating. We could see some effects of the plasma when we were leaving lab yesterday. We could see a little bit of influence on the fluorescent lights, but it was not dark yet outside, so it was not so visible. But Mr. Cash said that when he went there in the night, or when it was dark there, the lights on the ceiling of the lab at the 5 meters height from the floor, they were blinking. So there are some effects visible. The fields influence it. So now the fields are opening. The plasma is opening in those outer reactors, and we should continue with opening it more. We will add some more gases in it, a few doses of hydrogen, and we should let it open. So it needs some time, few hours, to accommodate the new conditions and let the plasma to slowly evolve with the natural process. And after this we will evacuate the chambers so that only the plasma stays in the cores. And after this making space, the plasma can expand more and open more. And then we can add some few doses of gases, hydrogen. Actually, we open the plasma of hydrogen only in these reactors. Even when we use the multilayering, the outer layers are used for triggering the opening of plasma and ionization of hydrogen, and opening it afterwards. And these layers, outer layers, are also meant as the protection of the plasma, to keep it in the center and to allow the ionization. by squeezing these layers and then letting them expand again and squeezing again. By this we should induce rays and conditions for ionization of hydrogen, and after this let the ionized hydrogen to open slowly its inner content to radiate more and get the fields more open from the proton and electron themselves. So this is our plan. There can be also situation when some reactor needs to be repaired again. That's the part of the process as well. So if this occurs, we will take it out and do reparations. We will reconfigure the formation so that it's more symmetric, and the formation will continue on with plasma opening and making the fields more strong step by step. And when the reactor is repaired again, if it needs a reparation, it gets back afterwards to its position and the process continues on. So it's the evolution. It's not in 1 minute to put it all together and to make it fly, but it needs some time because we don't use nuclear materials to make it more fast. So we need some natural process of exciting the content inside with the help of nanolayers or multilayering to get the plasma open. And of course, as we said many times, it needs proper conditions also in its environment. So it's very important to create harmonious environment in a way that you can pray for the reactors and ask the God to send the light for it to make the harmonious place so that it can open the plasma more easily in this harmonious way. Otherwise, if there would be this harmonious environment, it would disturb the conditions in the plasma and it would cause problems. So that's why it's so important to keep the good conditions. So first of all, it's also about us, not only about the star formation. We should awaken more our correctness inside and try to behave the best we can and try to be open to fix our problems inside also, and at the same time we can fix the problems with reactors. But it's two-way teaching. It's not only about the technology but also about us, because this interaction of us and this new technology is very tight. There is the interconnection. So it's not like this old technology when you switch the, let's say, oil or gas generator on, it just runs. And because it uses low strength fields, magnetic fields, it is not so much disturbed by us. But when we get to the strength of the thoughts and are closer to the strength of our feelings, this influences of us are more visible and more in effect. So that's why it's very important to keep in mind and in heart, in soul, that it has to go both together. The soul should guide the material world, so that this is used in good and proper way. So this is our star, or how to call it. It's still star. Circular formation now. I have posted some photos yesterday on the Facebook of Spaceship Institute, and we will add more. And of course, we have also videos. So we will add to our YouTube channel videos as we can. We have made some videos of loading process so that it is more clear for you how we do it. Because sometimes maybe when we describe it, it's not so comprehensible for you. But when we show it on the video, you will see better what we mean when we add one dose or something like this, what it actually means in our configuration. And I strongly encourage you to try things we try. I know that you don't have, let's say, 7 reactors as we have, but you have other possibilities. You can find some interested people and make smaller groups at least and try what we do and share with us, because it's about sharing and giving, and in this way we get more knowledge, because we don't know everything. We are here to learn and also to re-evaluate our view of this reality of technology, to make it more close to that actual truth. So if we make it together, it will be much easier than to make it only in a small group. So I have seen some of your experiments. I don't know everything what you do. I like this, that some of you share on Facebook or whatever internet channels. This is very good. This is what people need, because many people don't yet know how to fully handle this, how to even try it. Maybe they are scared of something because they lack some step which is not clear for them, and together we can make it more clear, so that actually with these nanolayers and GaNs capturing, we can make lots of applications. And we also we also ask you if you can help us in analyzing the materials we develop. The thing is that to stay independent, we want to encourage you to do the analysis together, to help us to analyze materials we produce in the lab, or you produce in the lab, and share the results openly, so that they cannot be blocked. And there are some problems in cooperation with in official way with universities and so on, because there are still people whose interests are not sharing but taking whatever they can. So they are trying to block the results, let's say, done, the analysis done on the material we have produced. And in this way, the reports can be obscured or changed so that they fit their needs. So if we want to get closer to the truth, please help us with analyzing capabilities if you have some at your place, or if you know somebody who could help. We can send the material from our lab to anybody who is interested to make independent analysis, but only to those who want to make the report in true way, I mean without hiding anything in the final result. So in this way we can get the most of it. And also when you produce your own materials in the lab in some configuration of GANs capturing sets or cells, you can analyze. So we should form some, let's say, analyzing grid, if I can call it like this, of places and people who are capable of making, let's say, structure analysis, composition analysis of materials. And in this way, it can be like the internet is meant, that you can use it to share openly. So in this way, we could have the capability of analyzing openly these new achievements, new materials, and to encourage people with these results also to go further and test other applications, because there are so many possibilities which can be experienced that we cannot do everything. Okay, Rick? Sorry. So now it's time for you. Ask questions, share feelings, whatever you want.
Guys, good morning, this is Lucian. I will interfere just a second because at least in Europe, in order to get on board, how to say, institutional labs, which mainly are funded by the government agencies and mainly from the European Union. So now let's make abstraction of what happened to Mr. Cash, because that is in Belgium and these things are not happening in all Europe. We have to produce some results. Results will be, I don't know, to produce CH2, CH3, CH2, H2, and whatever. Basically, it looks like you guys don't understand something. For a public body who is spending public money, they have to document every penny they spend. So just to give an example, there are institutes that are doing research on cancer, on this, on that, so they cannot spend money because of not reputability, or, you know, not knowing what their research goal is. So surely I will have some questions from Mr. Cash later, but supposedly he was telling about proteins. So the building blocks for proteins are amino acids. So the building block for amino acids are CH2, C2H2. So in the moment in which we can produce consistently, let's say CH2 or C2H2, whatever, at that point, the appropriate documentation can be made, the file, dossier, how they are saying, and now it's going to approval to the appropriate body. And they will be approved sooner or later. So at that point, of course, being funded with public money, obviously the reports and the results of the analysis will be shared to make publicly, because this is the law. So I think that this will clarify the issue. Thank you.
Hello, good morning, Lucian. I'm Jorge. I just trying to explain yesterday about what are you trying to say now. I'm fully aware of the problematic of make a difficult analysis or just analysis of unknown substance in food, for example, or in biochemicals. So in my point of view, what I want to do in my country, just starting with this process, is trying to make a net for medical and also for technicians in the biochemical, chemical, and these kinds of expertise to just to put together the resources we need in order to make a proper analysis. You know that it's very difficult to find, as you said, official university or scientific that are able to make these kind of things in public, you know. So I'm trying to solve this kind of difficulties, as I think this is the only way we have now. Just try to gather the supporters with some expertise in this area, trying to overcome the difficulties that is related to this kind of work. Yeah, and we have to be working with the same transparent, open and transparent, and just work together. That's why. That's my point of view. In the medical, I see is more difficult. So I just want to hear about Elijah. How can she see this is possible? If Elijah is there? Elijah?
She's or something like that.
So
she's
we
not
have
at
to create this also.
We are at new position. We need to build this network of people helping each other.
Yeah, we have to create this because we are in the beginning of this new science. So we have to be in the point we are. And you are part of this project also. So that's my view that I want to share. You want to add something in the middle?
Hello, this is Ivan. What I wanted to add is that, is that it's not institutions that do all these things; it's people that do it. So definitely it must be possible to get to know some people who are in this business is not the right word, who are knowledgeable about all this and who are able to do it regardless of the companies they work for or whatever, because they have the knowledge and they know exactly how to do it. So that's actually what we are looking for, because if the official instances will always try to block it in some way. Maybe there will be a point when that will no longer happen, but we have no idea when that will be. That's well. Speaking about the reactors again for just a minute or so. I also posted a rather short video. It's a minute and a few seconds. About the star formation, and then the very last image you see is the measurement of the magnetic fields in the 3 axes. Regarding my plasma reactor, the very last news is that this morning it stopped running. Probably not because the motor has a problem, but because the plasma locked the disk inside, because it's a single core where the outer visible pieces are not rotating, but inside there's a disk on the flat surface. It's a hemisphere that's rotating, and it's directly coupled to the motor, and the motor is also inside the vacuum with water cooling. Now the motor is cooled, the current is still running through the motor, but it's no longer rotating, so we'll have to wait and see what happens. I think that's mainly, there will probably be a few other things that come to my mind later on, but right now I can maybe pass the microphone to Marco.
Thank you, Ivan.
Yeah, thank you. Well, maybe I can describe what we are doing in last week regarding the reactor I'm taking care of. It's reactor E. Actually, my reactor was I have leak from core through the shaft. My shaft was rotating with the propeller in the center, and last week we found out that this shaft is not completely sealed. The seal, this dynamic seal, was leaking, and it was very difficult to replace this seal. Actually, I also don't have replacement for it. So we decided to put that reactor on site, and I asked Mr. Cash for if he can borrow another reactor, and he kindly allowed me to use one of his reactor, which was used for understanding of plasma properties. This is the reactor which was also, pictures were published also in some of the old pages of Keshe Foundation website. It's a spherical reactor, stainless steel reactor, which has copper rings on the top. These copper rings are connected into the center of the reactor to the different layers to observe the current from the reactor. So this reactor has a pin from top of it. This pin is used to feed gas into the reactor. It goes almost to the center of the reactor, and it's used also for the connections from the center of the reactor to the copper rings to get this current measurement. In the bottom of the reactor, there is a hole. There was another pin from the bottom, and we replaced that pin. Now we have nano-coated. We used brass, and we have nano-coated this brass pin, and we put it into the reactor from the bottom. So we seal this. We have put into the frame. Marek and Armen gave me the plate that they were using, and we have to reconfigure, have to make some adaptations to hold this reactor in the frame. And yesterday we started to load it. We got quite a big speed. We set it up about 500 RPM, and then the speed in this reactor went up to about 1000 RPM. Then we lower power supply voltage, and we bring rotation again to, I think, 400, and then it went up again in the evening, and we brought it down again. And today in the morning, Mr. Cash said that the speed of rotation went up again, and he lowered the voltage, so something is happening there. Maybe I can tell also about what are we using for loading. This reactor is stainless steel reactor, so we are using layering of the gases. Marek also explained what gases did we use. In my occasion, we used 8 measures of argon, 2 measures of nitrogen, 4 measures of helium, and 2 measures of hydrogen. When I'm talking about 1 measure, this means about 4 centimeters of gas at pressure 1 bar. No, 4 centimeters tube diameter, about 4 millimeters, something like this. And we feed this well, we don't have exact measurement. It's 4 centimeters of tube, and then we expand this amount of gas. We expand into about 5 to 6 meters long tube towards the reactor. We have another valve there And when this gas is expanded, we just open and close this valve near the reactor. So this is one feeding. And so when I'm speaking about two feedings, two measures of gas, I'm speaking about this. We took also the video, as also Marek said, about this feeding, so that you can have better understanding what we mean. So anyway, whoever is doing these tests, we have to be patient that we slowly create our plasma in the middle. It's very dependent. It depends on the reactor and the properties of the reactor. What kind of coating are you using? Are you using layering of gases? It all depends. Sometimes it took 1 day, sometimes 2 days, maybe even 1 week to create plasma inside. You have to be patient. This doesn't go like you just put gases in and you have plasma. There are many influences. What do you have in your reactor? How did you create? What environment also you create around it? Marek explained a lot about this before. So in a way, you have to be patient with creating plasma. I think that's all at the moment from me. If anyone else would like to add something, I'll pass microphone to John.
Hello, everyone. So, a lot has been said already. I'll continue with explaining more about MARA reactor. So, as you know, MARA reactor is a ceramic reactor. Normally, a picture should come on later, but I had some leakage happening because the ceramic was porous. When I returned to Belgium, I made a new series using a new mixture for the clay. I've been mixing half-fire clay with porcelain. So when I fired it at 12 of 90, I have had ceramic that was much more closed. But apparently I still have a very fine leakage from the porosity. In another way, I have been glazing the whole ceramic, inside, outside, except the shaft. So that's where I still see a very fine leakage. I still had a few problems because the bearing were not put correctly, or I've been using sheets of Coca-Cola box only to have a thin spacing between the ceramic and the bearings, and that created problems. So yesterday I had to undo all of it, and now it's sealed with epoxy. And instead of making a lot of noise like 2 days ago, now it's turning quite still. The motor I had for my system has been taken out because I was out of the formation at one moment. So my motor went onto Armin's and Marek's reactor, and I'm with Marco's motor because his system went out, and we have been adapting as we can to have something working. So now it's going on. So the ceramic reactor are made has two halves which are different. The one side I have made some kind of propeller inside, having creating some turbulence in the system, and the other side is just about without any way to create some turbulence. Well, in some ways, I put some Chamotte inside one side, so I do have a little turbulence on the surface, and the other one will create more mixture. So I don't know what's best. For the system is turning smoothly. I'm turning at 620 revolutions per minute. So I could go high or low, but well, system seems to be working correctly. The load has been made yesterday, and load is in fact to load it. We started to put 2 measure of hydrogen, then going from the inside to the outside, then added 4 measure of helium, 2 measure of nitrogen, and 8 measures of argon, so to allow the system to go from the lighter gas to the heavier. So now the system is turning. We cannot say if there is plasma or not. We have no way to measure it. So that's a big question, whether it will produce plasma or not. So we'll have to see the influence of the system on the others to know where we are. So I have a few more systems made with clay, but the first system has to work, and later we'll see where we'll go with the other. So that's all for my system. You have any question? No. I'll pass the microphone to Ivan. He has a little to say.
Yeah, hello again. It was quite short, but there were just a couple more things which popped up. First of all, the leakages. Everybody talks about the leakages. Maybe this has been mentioned before. I don't know, but I cannot remember. So to detect leakages, which happen very easily, and which we then try to block with silicone on the outside, which is then sucked in by the vacuum inside. But to detect the leakage, so when we take the reactor at atmospheric pressure, and we blow into one of the inlets and put soap wherever we think the leak might be to see the bubbles, just the way We used to look for punctured tires of our bicycles when we were children. Now, one thing I would like to say about this as a warning, we once used the compressor, and half of the sphere became a life-threatening projectile. So that is really something you have to be careful with. And then
I just put the live stream microphone on. Question about that: what kind of pressure would be advisable? Like 1 bar, 15 psi, would that be too much perhaps, or would that be in the range, for example?
It's just been passed on to me. You just blow with your mouth.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Because more than that, we had, I think, Marco and Armin trying to test Armin's metal reactor. Marco's, and it just flew in the air with like a bullet. So
right.
When you breathe into it, it's sufficient enough.
Right. You'd have to.
You see, you're just looking for the bubbles to see if there is any leak. There is something which I keep on reminding the knowledge seekers. The minute you have a leakage, don't jump into the conclusion there is something wrong with your reactor. 70–80% of the problems sits with your connections. Start from the point where you feed the gas backwards. Don't dismantle the whole reactor and try to find a problem. So go step at a time, close section by section until you get to your core. If it's not to the core, so you just blow air into the core and you find it very, very soft. Just make some soap, what you call liquid or whatever you use to a dishwasher, whatever, and just with a brush, just go over the spaces where you think there is a gap, and you'll see small bubbles. That's the easiest way to do. But on the other hand, if you got a motor sitting underneath of your reactor, block with the tissue paper that the water doesn't go into your engines. The liquid doesn't go into your engines, burning your motors. A simple thing, but it solves a lot of problem, because the first thing I've seen people do is just go, there is something wrong with my core. 99%, 90%. If there is any problem with your core, you'll find it later on. But test step by step from your feeding line to your core before you start looking into your core. And even when you have a leakage, you find 100% of the leakage can be resolved without opening the reactor. If you build reactors the way we have done, you have one point of interface between the atmosphere and the reactor, or internal environment of the reactor. There is usually a huge problem where you're using multi-core and you have a seal interconnection vacuum seals. If there is a leakage there, a lot of people keep on changing and trying to find a seal. If you find out there is a leakage between your central column and the seal, you can use what is known as a flipper seals, where the seal has got two wings, that when you suck the vacuum in, the other side of the valve will work with the atmosphere outside, so it doesn't let the leakage in. But with any of the seals, if it's not solid seal, because you use a soft seal, usually they are that kind of way, you just increase the pressure internally to 1 or 2 bars with your own gas hydrogen, and this will push the seal back into the sealing position and it seals itself. So you don't even need to change seals. So it's just a slight adjustments can help you to sort out. On the other hand, what we have seen, and I've shown the knowledge seekers, is when you do a vacuum test and your system is good in vacuum condition, then put it on the rotation and check it for vacuum. Then run the motor for at least an hour or two, or half a day or a day, and then check again for vacuum. And then if you have a vacuum, then you start your test. a lot of people vacuum and say, oh yes, it's good, and they start working and that's it. System good in a static condition is not a system good in rotational condition. And system good in rotational condition when you start it does not mean stay seals when the heating is done and the rotation comes into operation 24 hours later. So you do all your tests on the assumption that you have a hydrogen in your reactor, and you find out there is nothing in there. It's just what we call a ballooning. So needs time. You run a reactor, you run it for a few hours, and after a few hours, if you have a vacuum, then your system is sealed, not just because you tested on the bench. Secondly, a lot of people ask, can you have a lift with one reactor? Yes, you can, but you have to have a lot of knowledge what to do. If you have a lift with one reactor, you have to understand your lift, but where are you going to go? Can you hear us?
We had a temporary disruption in the go-to meeting where Vince mentions he lost the internet. He's on a backup now, and I believe it's working okay. So they lost it's good now, right? So the go-to meeting. The go-to meeting just lost a little bit of what you said, and the people on live stream got it all okay. So we're still good.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, it'll be okay. We can edit it all the audio together.
Okay, no problem. So when you run a test, you do the test. Even if you put a hydrogen in after the next day, test it again once more that your system is solid. There is a problem with some of you might be using transparent sealing material to seal your pipes. These materials decompose very fast. If you use like silicons, which are cheap silicons and transparent, these tend to be the major cause of leakage once you start running your reactor. In the rotation, they somehow decompose. It's better to buy a good, expensive silicon for 8-10 euro, which is white and non-toxic, which means they do not decompose so fast. Then you can run your reactors for months on end. Any one of you has used transparent silicon, change it today, because this is a recipe for disaster. The composition does not hold in the rotation. And somehow when the rotation there is a slight heat, it just separates from the body of the core.
Mr. Kesh, are you talking about actual like bathroom caulking type silicone sealant?
Yes.
You don't use. We were thinking you were just kidding about the bathroom caulking. We're actually that was your secret code for your high-tech connections, giving you some kind of special space silicone stuff.
We used to use it. We used to use space silicon. We had access to it, but now here I have found a better replacement.
Well,
in Italy, we don't have access to these things, so expensive silicon seems to be perfectly holding.
Expensive silicone, the best bathroom silicone, you mean? Silicone?
Yeah, that's the best bathroom, but it's got to be very, very thick. When you touch it, you know. The transparent silicons are very soft. They're like a gel, soft gel. But the very thick ones, they seem to be operating well, and you don't have that much problem with oxidization and release of gases into your core. Because the way to seal your reactor, people put silicon if you have two halves and you seal it, people put the silicon all the way in the middle of the ring before they put before the two halves together. The best way is to put the seal on the outer edges of the core and then close it, which means there is enough space for the silicon to spread along the what you call the wedge, of your, or the gap in the space where you left for the two halves to meet. And then if you're using a screw system, which most of you are doing, is to, when you've done that, when you put the two halves together and you put your silicon on the outer edge, totally on the outer edge, then one at a time, every hole before you put your silicon, before you put your screw through the bolt and nuts, fill in the hole for the bolt and nut with silicon fully, that your bolt goes all the way through and is covered with silicon, and there is no leakage in your holes from through the holes. And then when you finish that, again cover the two ends of the thread, the bolt and the nut with some silicon. You find you get 100% performance every time. These are little things now. A lot of people are doing these things. And if you're using micro thread, still at the end of the micro thread, just use the silicon. The problem with the micro thread is when you use a silicon on the outer, just on the outer edge threads, not inside the core, the outer where you see it, is that your silicon will solidify. All you do, if you need to go in, after a while, you put your core on the side and use a small, very small torch, hand torch, and you rotate your core very, very gently, and you heat it up, and it just opens up. But during the process of testing, you have 100% sealing. These are the little things to do. With the core which Marco is using now, we have 100% seal because it's a welded system. But we have used the central column core nano coated, which means the plasma will be centralized. Plasma does not have room to, like what do you call it, a ball in the bath to move around. This is especially is repeated again, the same concept and technology in the energy system. So we don't allow the plasma to play. Where, for example, with Jorge's system, the inner core is loose, has no connection except the motor connection, which is from a distance connected through magnet, and then the core itself again is loose. So there is no central position for the inner core plasma. So it's been used as a buffer system, especially developed for a buffer system, to buffer any rapid increases in the plasma. It's just that you have to understand how you change systems and why you do the way the things are done and the way the system is done. Today, for the first time, we have an opportunity to create a star formation with 4 spherical reactors. So this has come into position now that we are using the system which John has built. We are not sure if it still has gone into a plasma condition because it doesn't show any sign of it, but it should do because we've seen it with others. We have the original Iranian moon reactor which Arman is running, is a spherical with the center core. Then we have the Marco's fully spherical and the central energy system. So we have, for the first time, opportunity to create a star formation with nearly 4 similar in size reactors. Strange enough, last night I just went to about 10:30 to check on the performance, if everything is okay in the lab, because we have some problem, or we have some concerns about the motor which Marco is using in his reactor. He's the only one AC motor, the rest are all DCs, and the speed was up and the radio was not playing, and it seems that multi-layering central core concentration with the electrode which we put in the middle, the same as the energy unit, are very effective. The multi-layering is known. I've worked with it for years. I knew we'll get a response, but we never had a multi-core with a central connection, which is Marco system. As I think I wasn't here, Ivan should have told you, his core is on a steady state condition, which means we build the plasma up again, that the pressure of the plasma, the magnetic field of the plasma in opposite direction is stronger than the power of the motor. So we come to the same position as we did with Armand's and Merck's reactor about a week ago, 10 days ago. So the motor is taking the power, but is not rotating. So we have to wait and we'll analyze it today, what's happening. The formation of these, the creation of the extreme ultraviolet is done purely in 3 of the reactors, which is Marcos, Johns, and Iwan's. Iwan's situation reactor Half Moon is, or what's called Half Sphere, is very special because with Iwan's we have already put material nano-coated in every place in the reactor internally. But what we done, we have multi-layered and nano-coated reactor, which has never been done before. And we've seen it, we have achieved plasma saturation in less than a few hours. In condition of Marco, the core is not coated, but is layered, but central is a nano-coated material, which means central concentration. That's why we see very high speed, rapid growth of the speed, because the reactor goes to a point of high speed with the release of the plasma. Today we're going to start loading. I have a feeling we might see interesting results with this process. You got to realize now, out of the 7 reactors sitting on the floor, except John's, the other 6 all belong to the foundation. And we have one more spherical reactor like John's, like Marcos, which is on the standby, which has been built years ago. You've seen it in the flying car, the diagrams before. At the same time, we have facility to provide 2 more reactors internally from the foundation. So if you can imagine how much the central energy reactor has cost the foundation over the past 12 months, 18 months, you can understand how much the rest has cost us to develop over past years. This is not kind of investment individuals or small groups can do. Each reactor from thought to completion and rotation all costs about 30, 40, 50,000 euros in development and cost and other things which has happened around it. So what we are planning to do is to allow not only our reactors but your reactors to come into operation. We've already had visitors here in the last week, 2 weeks. As we said, the doors are open, but this is not, as I say, a zoo to come and see a monkey. So we need organization that people can come, can see, can understand, and slowly grasp what is happening. The situation is, at the moment, how we're going to keep it. If something interesting happens radically, then we ask Rick to put a special workshop presentation in the middle of the week or whatever to show what is happening. The field dimension is now beyond the building of the lab, because I've seen some markers which is there. And as I said before, we had officials here 2 weeks ago. We have announced the space over the Keshe Foundation Research Center as a no-flight zone. Not because it's dangerous, not we are threatening, but we don't ourselves know the extent of the field, flow within the area. So next few weeks and days we might see interesting positions. On the other hand, the institute, with moving to its new permanent place, in September allows us to have an open door policy of teaching. With a new center opening up, we have two choices. We have to put all the resources here in the SSI to organize and start developing the center to be open in September, or we can keep our research going as it is, but ask from the volunteers around the world to accept parts of the responsibility to run and organize everything which is to do with the foundation in the new center. What we learn with opening the new center as a teaching place, then we transfer this knowledge. The people who help us will transfer this knowledge of setting up different institutes around the world. So as Marek said in his earlier talk, now we pass from today the responsibility of the running of the foundation to people like you in the outside borders and boundaries of this institute center. We need people as volunteers who can organize all the registration, people who can organize people's trip, or people who are coming to visit. We need now to stay independent, what you call people with the scientific knowledge who can accept materials from us legally through their organizations, or if they have their own private research center, to analyze materials for us and to tell us what it is. The reason being is that you all know that we did a development in Fukushima with the help of Yukaku about 4 or 5 weeks ago. We are waiting. The paper on the Fukushima is already fully written, completed. It just needs a small adjustments of relocating few pieces in the paper. We have sent the materials to national governments for reconfirmation. That's why we are not releasing the paper. This means once we get a confirmation from the governmental institutes that the finding in Fukushima can be replicated independently, then the technology stands on its own, but done through the foundation the way we have done. This has taken us weeks. If we can establish a network, as Marek said, of scientists around the world to support us. You're a professor in the university. We know a lot of professors around the world universities are using and following the work of the foundation. In the universities, you have all these facilities. Provide us with your expertise, what you can do, and we send you the material for you to analyze and publish it directly with us and for the world population. Does not become a private research paper for a finding by the university. We will collaborate with you, but we need materials which we are developing so rapidly to be analyzed by experts. There are a lot of questions which has been risen and has to be answered. One of these questions is the fats which we are using, the proteins which we are producing on every single system, what are they made of? Are they edible? Are they for fuel consumption? We have seen material which we know analyzed by Ghent University. This is CH4, which is methane gas. It's in the book. Number 2, if we get support, I know we have a support in Chinese universities. I know we have support in universities in Greece. We have support in universities in America. Provide the Keshe Foundation SSI at universe, SSI for universe at gmail.com. Send us your expertise, what you can do. We have to start collectively, analyze all the materials we are producing and publish it immediately. Which means the knowledge stays. What the benefit will have this for all of us? You all been waiting to see what it can do, the technology for you, or for the world population. We know that the protein on some of these containers are digestible protein with a high energy. What does this mean for a man in Africa? Open the battery of your mobile, make caustic layers, then put it in the salt from the sea wherever you live, in the small containers, and connect it to anything which can pull energy. A light, a LED light, a piece of plate, which behaves as a energy consumption, as a heater. Then the material will produce you a small amount of fat on top layers within hours. And if we can specify how to do it, what energy it does, all you need to do is touch the protein on the top, and that will give you and your child and your family food for a day. This is what we are trying to establish. These proteins which are getting produced is a continuous basis. There is a paper which I've written, it's called Oil, Gas and Protein and the Earth. Ivan is doing the correction for it, and it'll be published within the next 2-3 days by the foundation. In this, I explain how oil and gas has been produced on Earth against all the assumptions of the past that all the animals who died, which died millions of years ago, the oil went into the center of the Earth and now it's the reserves and the gases. I have explained that the oils we are extracting in millions of barrels a day is a natural process, which exactly what we saw in the Fukushima test and what we see on our test labs. These oils, when did not connect to the right materials like potassium and zinc or whatever, which led to the beginning of a new life, they have sunk into the center of the Earth and they become the oil as we see it. So, in the process of the conversion of the CO2 from the atmosphere to a GANS, with the way it's done on the nano layer, not only we converted CO2 in releasing hydrogen and oxygen into the atmosphere, we have produced the oil which we use to run our cars and everything in the environment of today. So the natural process of the conversion of CO2 in the right condition gives us the oil production, the oil which we have today. The problem with the oil we have today, which we extract from deep earth, is that we have to refine it to make it to a specific condition and applications which we need, be it a lubricant, be it for a soap production or whatever. Now with this technology and what we have shown, Marak will put the pictures on the paper this week or so before we publish it, we show it, is that instead of making the oil and then going back to the refinery to come to the original condition you want it, now we can tailor-make the oil we need for what we need from a point of the atmospheric condition. So you don't need to refine, you tailor-made what kind of oil you want on the surface to be produced. And in converting the CO2 to produce what you call oxygen and other gases, you produce your own tailor-made oil according to what is needed. So a lot of this digging and the drilling has come to an end. This technology will change the fundamental of the structure of the human race on this planet, and this is another one. At the same time, as Marak will show, we see it very clearly, very pronouncedly in the beautiful unit which Arman has spent a lot of time to make it. He used a lot of ingenuity and the different things to build this cubicle box. In part of these boxes is made, you see the gases bubbles, which are somewhere released and some are entrapped within the protein on the top. This shows how life got its support and got connected to the use of oxygen to convert into hydrogen. These 2-3 boxes, which I hope Marek will be able to put a picture on the paper, will show how life actually started. But at the same time, when you use different composition of the materials, we see these bubbles convert to methane, to CH4, to CH3. So this explained, I explained in the paper again. That's why we see high, huge reserve gases near the where we find oils usually. And this has been a natural process. So the Earth, in converting the high level of the acids and what do you call it, CO2, which was been in the atmosphere into oxygen, has produced three different type of proteins, which we know. One protein in the linkage with the right materials has led to life, what we call animal life. One linkage, which the way is with the same system as you have seen with the first half bottles they made, as it's a string shape which is not twisted, has led to the protein of what you call wheat, vegetation protein. And the protein which is in the conversion has not managed to link too much at the time of its inception, has led to the oil which we extract now as oil production in the deeper earth. And partially in this process, the carbon has been, or the carbon hydrogen link has been led to the production of the methane gas and other gases which we use. So in so many ways, this is the next step in the opening of the technology from the energy point of view. Some people say we want to get away with it, but in a way, all this complaint about what do you call it, CO2 global warming, this is the most beautiful thing ever happened to man if the man knows how to use it. You claim there is so much CO2 and you plant trees. Now make little boxes. You make food and convert the CO2 into oxygen for the atmosphere. This is how this planet has done it over millions of years ago, and it's still doing it. The production of the oil and gases has not stopped because the assumption was that the dinosaurs died. It is on the process which we have shown. Even today, as we speak, in part of this planet where the condition is right, this Earth is producing protein and depositing it as oil for the future generation if it goes into the deep ground. The process of the feeding now, the humanity, this is what I explained in the past. You have two batteries. You can have two mobile phones. You can have everything you need. Now, with one battery, you can feed your family for life. This is a cow. You don't need to go to the farm to allow a cow or a sheep to grow for a year, 2 years. If there is no grass, if there is no rain, you die. The conversion of the protein in a natural way, which this planet has done, is in front of you. Now we're releasing pictures of it. I think we have about 100 units, boxes in the lab, and every single one shows protein. Yeah, near enough. Yeah, one of them is about 60, one is about 40. It's over 100, over 100. So it's not one example, and all the knowledge seekers, we see it every day. So it. Marek tells me you can see it on the Facebook, all the pictures have been put. So what you see to you, it was nothing, it was just like a fat or a layer of fat. Now we start explaining the technology. Now you have an insight to what is going to change. If you live in Africa and you have a child which is going hungry, once we establish the energy level of these proteins, which we are producing, and we can establish with the help of the scientists around the world very rapidly within the next few weeks, what is the energy level of these proteins and if they are safe and there are different proteins for different things, then the hunger in Africa is over. The hunger for a child not to go to school because he's hungry is over. As a lot of you know, I gave a lecture in South University of Sierra Leone about a year ago, over a year and a half ago. And before I give a lecture, there were about 400 or 500 students and the lecturers in the auditorium. The people running the university, they said to me, there is a problem here. If you are while you're giving your lecture, you see the students falling asleep and they're asleep on the table, it's not that they are tired. Most of them can eat once every 2-3 days because they don't have the financial resources. So when they come to the lectures, they fall asleep out of hunger, but they are here because they want to have the knowledge. So the facilities are not in the universities in Africa to assess the energy level of these proteins we are producing. If you are scientists who can do this evaluation for the foundation rapidly, we can allow these students in Africa to go to school, to university, with the energy to be able to educate. Every hour, 2,000 children die of hunger around the world. And a battery from a mobile phone can put an end to this. We do not talk. Now is on the table. Now is physical, and I'm sure a lot of you who've been running these tests with these, you are so interested in megawatt and kilowatt of energy from your little Coca-Cola bottles and your little machines you made to see batteries coming on the motor running. You missed the biggest point. This is the life and feeding line of the future. Sorry about this, I've got a very bad cold. Marek brought me a gift after he came from the holidays, and it was a bad flu. So the whole situation is, as we said, we will reach every man, every child on this planet, and now we start opening the doors to explain what it is. I know scientists in China and in Greece and medical people around the world are listening to this, and they have access to these machines in the universities, which is given to them for the education of mankind. Contact us. We don't send samples to anybody just because you say so. We send it to the address of the institute, which we make sure is reached the right place. Analyze these proteins for us, and analyze the protein if you made the boxes yourself and you see the fat on them. And then you will understand, or you let us know what energy level it is, how much it carries. I know they carry a high energy because sometimes I touch them, when I touch my body or my lips, I feel the energy. And Yukoko did the same when she touched them when she was in Fukushima. The process of production of the oil, in part of, as I said before, in the test session in Fukushima, was confirmed by Yukako when she was saying, I asked her if she sees like a grease or fat on the soil, and she confirmed yes, she can see it. So the process of production of oil through the natural process of conversion of CO2 from a gas to a gas leads to the creation of the fat and amino acid and everything else which we call it. So now, as of today, if we can have the support to fully analyze it, the hunger for every man on this planet is over. Because all you need to do, if you are very much humanitarian and you would like to end up the hunger in Africa, buy a mobile phone and give the mobile phone battery as a kit and send them to Africa. You save a life. Give a man a fish, you have to give him a fish every day. Teach a man how to fish, you give him the lifeline. All you need to do, if you are very much interested, analyze these proteins. Let's go to the next step. Next week, next Monday, we start the agricultural part of the process of the technology. We have been busy very much with the to see the lift configuration. But this configuration which we talk about the lift is not just for lift and energy. We're looking into the production of material amongst and between the reactor's operation too. Because what you see on the plates where the protein is created, now we have enough knowledge in the coming weeks and months to organize the reactors in a way that different locations within the environment of the reactors or within the environment of the totality of the setting of the reactors to produce different materials. And we show this. It's been done before. Now we start showing it publicly. There is a situation that stands, as I explained to the knowledge seekers yesterday, is that we never had multi-composite systems. So it takes us a time to understand and analyze every change. We have a ceramic reactor which belongs to John. We have a stainless steel which is Marco running. We have a fully plastic reactor coated with copper and copper oxides and the rest, which is the one which Marek and Armand are running. The Iranian space reactor is the same composition because they were cut from the same material. Originally, we cut these two in Tehran from the same thing that we could have homogeneity between that. Then we have a copper reactor in the center. Then we have a colorful multi-bucket plastic, 2-3 different type of plastic composition, plus copper oxide and copper layering with Iwan. And then we have the one which is Yukaku and Jorge are running, which is more interesting. It has no legs, no feet, but is running independently through magnetic connection. All the systems we run, the motor is directly connected. Sorry. The motor is directly connected to the reactor. So we control the speed of rotation. In the cases of the reactor with Jorge and Yukaku, the reactor rotation of the inner core is controlled by the remote magnetic field, which means there is no physical connection between the inner core and the motor. The same is with Iwan's reactor. This gives a facility of buffering any sudden increase in the plasma which you cannot control. What happens that the reactor, especially with Yukaku and Jorge's reactor, the reactor can move and buffer any sudden shocks. It's been especially put in there. We call it as a dummy, as a buffer system. Both the inner core and the core that has that facility to do. So any surges will be buffered out. So now we transfer this knowledge from the dynamic, which is on the table, as we said with the protein, into the static, which is on the table we've seen with the conversion of CO2. In the coming months, we transfer this knowledge into a dynamic system. In a space, you can't have pockets everywhere producing protein. You have to understand the capability of the system, how it's done. And as we have the center core as oxygen and the other 3 cores around it behaving as other elements of the protein, we can produce a condition that the protein can be produced in the same condition in the space. So this is the next step after we achieve things. And a lot of people are expecting to see lift and weight reduction and to see energy production. These are not the aims. This is to, when we are totally ready, then we go out together in one go. So now this next Monday we transfer now that we set up the systems up completely, the technology goes into the garden. All the things have been bought ready for knowledge seekers to start the seed process here in the center. Every knowledge seeker will have 3 or 4 boxes, and they can choose their own seed and the way they want to coat the seeds with nanomaterials and the way they want to water it or whatever. Then what we need scientists from outside the foundation. Wherever you are in the world, send us your details to ssi4universe@gmail.com, and we would like to send samples of these seeds as they grow, as they seed up, and as they go up, and as they develop, to be tested. The only point of reference for all of us is not that how much more seed we can or harvest we can make, is not how the plant behaves. We would like to know if the plant can create a better product, much more of, and secondly or primarily that the DNA is not changed within the seed, what we harvest at the end. So if you are a specialist in the universities who can measure and analyze the change in DNA, we keep some of the seeds in the background so that for a test. And if the end products in 2 or 3 months, the harvest is genetically the same as the original, then we follow the process. This work has been done in detail by one of the Keshe Foundation scientists past 2 or 3 years in Belgium. He's videoed everything, he's pictured everything. We have some basic knowledge of how to start. We know the duration of the soaking of the seed has a direct effect on the growth, or a short-term, long-term effect on the growth of the seed. We know some of the seeds, depending on how much they've been soaked in the what do you call it, CO2, have returned back to their origin as they were in grass condition. They are not a wheat anymore, and it happens with all of them. So we try to understand more about the whole structure, and we need help and support from people who understand this. We have partially the expertise with Jorge here, who understands these things more than anybody else. Is part of his work, and that's why he was chosen to be part of the knowledge seekers. So he can directly, we got a man who understands the process, but we behave, the rest of us, as a farmers in different part of the world, and each farmer grows his own seed his own way. So we do it our way, and we would like to know what is the outcome internationally. So in both ways we produce protein, and we harvest the same seeds or similar seeds. The next most important thing is that next week, hopefully, all 3 papers will be released. The Fukushima paper will be released. The paper which is called Oil, Gas and Protein and the Earth will be released. And the paper is called, I don't know what we decided at the end, it's called Germs and Viruses, or Bacteria and Viruses. Yeah, and proteins, yeah. So this was it's miscrusted. So next week we release 3 papers. I've just received confirmation in past half an hour or so, before I come online, that we will have some information. Tests are done by governmental organization today on some of our materials, and hopefully by Friday we will have some indication. And that's one of the reasons we delayed the release of the Fukushima paper. If that document comes in, we will add it to the paper of Fukushima. If not, we release the Fukushima paper and we add that to it later on. Now, any questions?
Can we go to the technical one?
Pardon?
I was just going to ask.
Can we go to the very specific questions, or you want to still want to explain?
No, you can ask any question you like, but I would like to ask you, before I go back out again, to answer any questions. We need experts, which we know a large number of scientists around the world follow the Keshe Foundation work, and they would like to do something for the foundation or be part of it. You don't need to move from your country. But if you can provide the facilities to analyze the new materials and new conditions we create, it's time for you to participate and add your knowledge to our knowledge. Go on, ask me the specific question. I can imagine what it's going to be, but...
Okay, so first of all, I want to report to you a breakthrough, and before doing so, because I have to expose what I was working at, I would like to try to stay with me to go like in the hands-on, how to say, questions and answers. So now let me expose you the problem. As far as you know, in the last two workshops, I had some questions and you provided some answer how to do some sort of what Gert is doing. So cover some copper wires first with copper oxide through the two container process. And after that, you suggested me to put that wires into the Coca-Cola bottle and do the graphene coating. So while in the stage 2 of the two container covering with copper oxide, was taking much more time, maybe 2 days to unload with the DMM voltage measurement, the copper oxide layers. I came in a very huge surprise that without any electrodes and without any what the knowledge seeker showed and what you showed regarding that big container for creating fats and oils and whatever, to get what Yukoko had in Fukushima, that means on the upper side of the water with only sodium hydroxide and potassium hydroxide, it was a layer of grease, of some oily thing, which I removed it with a syringe, and I was putting back the box, close it, and leave it another 24 hours, and the process continued, so I got more oily thing. So now I need your help because how to say, it was not supposing to do that. So in other words, it looks like some sort of oily, exactly what you did explain today. It's producing some sort of oil. And basically...
Hello? Hello?
Still hear me?
You said basically, after basically we lost you.
So I was saying that on the big plastic box, it was set up like a can in which they sell, fish or canned meat. The only thing on that can was that, coming back to making advertisement to Coca-Cola, it's having like a tab. So when you pull that, you can open the can. So it's a very highly stressed edge. So you can cut the upper lid easily without any cutting instrument. So on that one, which was like 3/4 of the height under the liquid and 1/3 above the liquid, it was just like a steel, carbon steel plate on which the copper wires were put for the stage 2 of copper oxide coating. So my question for you will be, why did I obtain that oil on the top of the water? Because the box, the plastic box, was closed, so it couldn't absorb carbon dioxide, as you explained in your big box with a lot of compartments. And where from that oil is coming?
Did you vacuum the system?
No.
So you
it was just an ordinary box as you have.
Yeah, but you still have gases in it. You still have nitrogen.
Yes,
in
it's
there.
having. Right.
So if you
it's
create
just having like an O-ring.
Yeah, but if you create a vacuum and observe if there is going to be the creation of fat or not, then it confirms it one way or another. In any atmospheric condition, you have 65% nitrogen content in the environment. So you still have the nitrogen to convert. But don't forget, there is something which is, which I've explained this before to the knowledge seekers. You just need the carbon or the oxygen to produce the nitrogen to lead to the protein production. In the process which you create, you don't create only nanomaterial, but you create, I showed it this week, I think John took a picture of it, the circle white rings on the table. Do you have it? Yeah? I think it's been loaded. What you create in these nano layers is thousands of layers of space and material. And you stack these on top of each other in layers and layers. So your material, your layers create a gravitational magnetic field which can lead and does lead to adding or converting oxygen to nitrogen or carbon to nitrogen. So even you void the whole environment from nitrogen, the process which you have started because of the sodium and having the hydrogen available and the carbon available in your package can lead to production of the nitrogen. Because now you don't create matter, you create a spherical magnetic field, bubbles, which contain on the other surface the gravitational magnetic field of nitrogen. If you have looked at the GANs of the materials you made, at the material which is subsided in the bottom of the, underneath of the water, and you extract it, look at the structure. It looks like a bubble. It's just like little ball bearings. Each ball bearing is literally first time you can see a molecule or atom individually. This is the process. That's why you say you didn't add how it's come there. You say you put it in the container, but it was still growing. Because in your container, there is enough nitrogen and oxygen and carbon, especially if it's in a plastic, to extract and add to it. This is what I explained in the rotating reactors when they use silicon. You get something very special with these nanomaterials. And I've said this before and keep on, especially I think you missed the point, is that the nanomaterials you see on top of your electrode in the Coca-Cola bottle does not come from the top. It's the copper which is extracted and it layers itself up and it pushes up a layer up. So in the layer of, as you see, the dark nano layer, the reason for it being dark because the layers, thousands and thousands of layers underneath the top layer you see, it is a tunnel of the magnetic gravitational fields of nano layers which are connected and they interact. So in this layer, because the reason is black, is that the full nano spectrum, the full spectrum of the magnetic field is absorbed by the material. That's why all the nanomaterials are black. Because
yes, I understand, but because these copper wires were staying like on a steel plate, I was thinking that it's having like a Faraday effect to screen the magnetic field.
No. The layers create their own gravitational magnetic field among themselves, which goes beyond the what do you call it, the upper layer of the nano coating, as you see. The field interaction from these nano layers in the future, when people can measure, it goes meters. It's not, you don't take, and if you can analyze, I presume I can guess which institute you're coming from now, if you don't want to announce it where you are. But it should be in your hand, in your facilities, to burn the layers, and as it did with SEK in the report of SEK which you released, you will see 8% of carbon by mass within the layers. This technology, as you see with the nano layer, has been a nightmare of the American government, security services, and the military.
Okay, and the second
Why?
question would be,
No,
as
no,
I
no,
am
no.
putting
Let me answer.
Okay.
You this. Because you create a dynamic nano layers, because to you it's solid, but if you look, it's all holes and gaps in it. When you use a Coca-Cola bottle, and when you put a caustic in Coca-Cola bottle and you create the right condition, the gaps in the layers, nano layers, as you're creating, absorbs the carbon from the neck of the Coca-Cola bottle. And a Coca-Cola bottle in that structure PET, which is a carbon-hydrogen bond, releases a large quantity of atomic hydrogen. So atomic hydrogen partially will be found within the structure, but most of it can be used for your reactors to feed the reactors. And if you're clever enough, you know what to do, you convert the atomic hydrogen into the GaNs of hydrogen and you use it for the food in the center of the reactor core. So the production of the protein, which you see even though you don't have the material, is because you have already started the process in the GaNs structure of the protein itself. So this material will absorb as much as possible from its environment, whatever is there, to convert to its own gravitational magnetic field mass, which is of the protein, NCHO. So that's why you see growth. And when you don't have any more, the growth will stop.
And the second question is, while I'm putting very low amounts of sodium hydroxide and potassium hydroxide, it's a huge amount of that whitish small spheres, white spheres, that, how to say, based on the small amounts of the hydroxides, it's huge. I mean, probably if you take them from the bottom
of carry on, will never stop. If you keep on, that's what we are doing now in the lab. We have syringes, we keep on extracting it and it keeps on producing. It will never stop.
Yes, I did the same.
It doesn't end. It doesn't end because what happened, this goes back, it seems that you haven't understood the whole package yet. In your little cubicle of the electrode and where you see the fat, you have created the condition of the environment of this planet. So it will carry on using the same magnetic gravitational field to produce whatever you need. Now you see the CO2 because partially converted.
Right, but I have a very hands-on question. While you and the knowledge seekers were introducing the electrodes into the salty solution, I was just putting the coated wire coppers on a steel plate that was above the liquid. So while in your case, as you explained the previous...
Can you repeat that?
Yes, I was saying you and the knowledge seekers are putting the nano-coated copper wires into the salt solution, into that tanks you were showing. And I was putting the nano-coated wires on the steel plate that was staying above the liquid. So my electrodes were not in any kind of solution, but lying on a steel plate. So could you give me some explanation why? I mean, in your case, it's very clear why it's working because you explained that the proton plasma of the water is taking the copper oxide from the electrodes and is dropping it on the bottom of the container. But in my case, it's just lying on a piece of steel and it doesn't look like it's losing any material at all. The steel plate is clean.
But are you producing still protein on the top layer of your water?
Yes. And now since 2 days, I'm taking it out with a syringe.
Well, stop. Okay. This is what I just told you 2 seconds ago. You are still a schizophrenic condition. As I said that to all the knowledge seekers here. The schizophrenic condition is...
Maybe, but I need some help.
Hold on. Let me finish. You have been brought up with matter. Now you come 18, now you see the other half of you, which has to understand the process of GANs and nano layers. And in between, somehow you get lost between one body and the other. And that's why what I call you schizophrenic at the moment. I just explained to him just less than a minute ago. The gravitational magnetic field of nano layers goes meters beyond the top layer. It does not need to be in the environment of the water to do the same thing. Being near to it and the field expands beyond it, it still interacts the same process in the water. I've seen this myself, so I know exactly what you're talking about. It's not the first time. But the only thing is that...
So you are suggesting that as long as...
The field, gravitational magnetic field, is there within your electrode, within your coated electrode, meters, centimeters away from it, you create the same environment as we... Don't forget why is there. Again, I told you you're a schizophrenic. Is because you will see this now with the seed growth. The coated layer will absorb and extract what is in the environment. This is what the seed coating will do. Why we put the seed in the coating and then we take it out and we put it and it grows without the water as long as the first initial seed has grown without any nitrogen. Your system being near the surface of the liquid or being in the moisture of the earth has the same opportunity. But you will find one thing very interesting. Look at the material on the plate itself. Start looking part of the moisture if you see red spots on the metal, on the steel, if you use iron. If you can see like a rust.
Can you repeat once again what kind of spots?
Like a red color spots, orangish to red color, like as the steel is rusting. Yeah? Then
Not
you will
yet.
see this. But pay attention, because in some cases you can see if the moisture comes between your electrode and your steel, you will see reddish colored drops or connections somewhere. This is how the first blood cells were produced in conjunction with iron. You will see the first signs of creation of life on this planet connected to iron. That's why iron is connected to our protein in our blood cells. You understand? Because we've seen it here in the lab. I don't suggest. I know you see it. You just follow it. But the reason why protein is created, even though the electrode is not in the liquid, because the surface of the water is evaporating liquid. What do you call it? Moisture. And that moisture still interacts with the electrode which you put on the steel, gravitational magnetic field of which is creating in its nano layer, and with the nitrogen which is just above the water. If you could put a very, very slow camera, I've said this to the knowledge seekers before, you will see literally protein raining down back on your water. The protein is created above it and it's dropped.
Could we change the container with a glass to be able to see through the camera, or we need a plastic container?
Change anything that you can. You got to try it. The limitation is your thoughts. Try it. Put a very fine, and then look at the spectrum of the magnetic field. There is something, I was asked a question and I explained something to the knowledge seekers. Somebody, we are giving a lot of things, a lot of interviews in different things. Italian televisions have started making a documentary, not about the technology, but what technology is going to make in respect to the humanity. So we started the first session last Saturday. And the news, what do you call it, the journalist asked the question. He said, why they've taken a lot of pictures. This is crazy. It's absolutely crazy. I don't know how many more telephones.
Give me just one more second here because I have a question.
No, let me explain.
In order to continue the process,
let me explain this to you. So the journalist asked me that they've done a lot of what do you call it, magnetic field spectrum aura from a lot of politicians, and most of them, the aura around them is black. He said, can you explain why? They've done a lot of research in South Africa and other places, and the aura of the politicians, a lot of them, even royal families, is black. But most of the people have different auras. I explained to him the aura of these people, high politicians and royal families, is black, is because they become exactly. I showed him the electrode in a Coca-Cola bottle. I said, do you know why nanomaterials are black? And it shows themselves black, you see them as black, is because the lights we see, the colors we see, is what the material does not need. So reflects it back. Orange is what the material doesn't absorb. Nanomaterial, because you create a full spectrum of all the magnetic field spectrum within the matter environment, it absorbs all the fields. So all nanomaterials, pure nanomaterials, have to be black. It's the same with the politicians. They are used to absorbing everything. Everything is mine. I am here to be served. And the mentality of the brain reflects in the aura of the man. So the environment you create around your nanomaterials is exactly like the aura of the politicians. It goes beyond the body. If they could feel it, detect it, and they videoed it with the politicians, so you can imagine what happens around your electrode. You don't need to dip it in the water or dip it somewhere else. The field spectrum will go that way and extends beyond. We see it in a static condition in the reactors. We see it in the dynamic system where we have affected the chemtrails 20, 30 kilometers away from the center. That's why we call the area of the center now flying zone until we know where we are with our systems. Now I hope you understand better how come you produce protein without actually having your material inside. But it's nice to do this because I've seen this before. Saw this about 3-4 years ago, maybe about 6 years ago. Okay, ask the next question.
Yes, and I have only one more question. If I understand correctly, if I can make an opening to let some air in, obviously, and nitrogen, I have to keep an eye on the level of the water and the liquid. So that means the system will continue to produce, unless the level of the water will not drain completely by evaporation, the system should be able to work, how to say, continuously.
Yes, but you get to the point of saturation. But you get to a point of saturation. It's the same thing. The thickness of your fat, I did this test some time ago. The thickness of your fat will not increase beyond the limit. It's the same as the thickness of your nano layers on your copper electrode will not go beyond certain level, because the field reaches the point of what do you call it, balance. So as long as you remove the fat, it'll be produced more, but the thickness of the fat will not change. But at the same time, if you use different coating, copper coating or any other material, nano coating, you'll find out you produce different thickness and texture of fat too. We've seen it here in the lab. So it's not only the
understand. Thank you very much.
Environment. You understand? Now, can we know where you are from? Would you like to tell us? Hello?
I'm in the States. Hi, I'm in the States.
Yes.
At this point,
which
New York.
organization? Yes. Which organization you work with?
No, I'm not with any organization. So I'm not affiliated to no one.
Okay. No problem.
what I was telling to, I think, to the Marek in the beginning, regarding the analysis. In European Union, there are these kind of programs in which there are fundings that are allocated to the research institutes. So, when we do these results, they can do this analysis in the 1-year plan, or they have 6-month plan, 2 years plan. And this is why I was advising you that once we have some results that we can submit to them.
Yes, the thing is, we talked about this yesterday here as well, and before that. If we go to government and institutions, they're going to interfere with the work of the free work of the foundation. We release the results. Let them decide what to do. We are aware of the changes which is coming very slowly but drastically. Leading scientists around the world have started taking notice of our work, and partially because of our openness, that they can relate themselves and their work too. In coming weeks and months, we announce how different universities and organizations around the world have allocated research for investigation in the work of the foundation. There are universities around the world who are doing this now. They have funded research money for PhDs, a number of them from one of the leading universities. I know 2 other universities are in the same position. The funding is getting organized that they want to research into different findings we have. And that's how you open the technology. Somebody said to me, wrote me an email, technology like this has to be given to the governmental organization to investigate, and not done by a bunch of amateurs like you, Latin Cash Foundation and SSI. I said, my God, the guy hasn't even understood what we are doing. So the research, we don't rely on the European or other governments to fund us. If they say we want to do the research in this aspect, they're quite welcome. We allow the scientists to come in the lab and look at it. Understand, they teach us as much as we can teach them. But as long as you don't stay in the schizophrenic mind between the gas and the matter, then it's easy to work. But I still see this with the knowledge seekers here. They see the GANs, they see the behavior of the plasma, but they still think in the way of the matter, and it doesn't add up. We saw this clearly 10 days ago with our Marek and John and the reactor they were running. The plasma overtook and they tried to force it. They put the pressure on the matter electron onto the plasma, and the plasma won. The motor burned out. You got to understand and distinguish between the two. Then the life is very easy. Next question. Have you finished?
Yes, I'm done for today. Thank you very much. And if you would like, I can make a picture. I can make a picture of the liquid and send it to the knowledge seekers, and you can.
Yes, please. It will be nice to see it.
I have a few questions, Mr. Kesh.
Yes.
One of the things is the sun. When I look at the sun, it pulses and it sends out like little rings of energy, like in a pond. What is that?
What?
When I'm looking at the sun and you focus in on it, it's pulsing, and it sends out. It looks like when you throw a rock in a pond and it sends out ripples.
Yeah.
The sun does the same thing when I stare at it. Do you know what that is?
I haven't seen one. Ripples. Marek says it's a ripples of energy or magnetic field. Naked eye. Maybe it's your. Maybe you see that's your blood pulse.
I was going to say exactly that same thing. It's known, for example.
If it's a sequential, measure your blood pump. What do you call it? Your heartbeat.
Yes,
no,
exactly.
It's not my blood. It pulses way too fast for that.
No, I haven't. Maybe you can send us a picture, then we see.
I don't think you can take a picture of it, but I'll try.
What would the frequency be then, Brett? What do you think?
I would say a couple hundred per second.
Right, so you'd have to figure that out as far as if you had the exact frequency, maybe that would be helpful.
Yeah. Also,
Any other question?
I just wanted to let you know I got some equipment in today to make the videos with the pyramids, and I made one tonight, but it's not real good, so I should have some this week for you guys.
Yeah, can you send that to the knowledge seekers, please?
Sure.
Yeah, thank you very much. Any other question?
How you doing, Mr. Cash? This is Dave.
Not too bad.
You still have the scheduled lecture in Italy in June?
We're trying to. The scheduled lecture is not with us. It's 21st, 22nd of June. It's done by an organization. We have not advertised it because it's theirs. Yeah, in Tuscany, yeah. Yes, it is June. If you want, we're going to ask them if we can advertise it and we put it on the forum.
Awesome. What's the status? You said last workshop you were going to give us an update on the Italian commercial reactors.
I got to know past couple of days that they finished their designs or the whatever the guy was doing, and now they gone to professors in University of Milan for some technical whatever he had to do with the university. I don't understand why it was a need for it, and they should have something within next week or two from the University of Milan, because these people are into technical development on the edge of what do you call it, motor racings and motorbike racing, and they're on the edge of the latest materials available and technologies. So they've decided to consult a couple of professors in Milan University for their work, and then it comes back to the foundation for the coating, and then it goes back to them. So that's as far as we know. This is what they have updated us within the past couple of days. I might have some news for you early next week regarding this matter, because if they've done it, we should be able to nano coat it before the professors can make a decision or discussion on it, because it has to be coated in a different way, in a powder way, that it creates the right kind of energy.
Well, on that subject.
Pardon?
On that subject, the nano coating. Do you believe that the chemical vapor disposition is creating copper oxide crystals, or do you believe that it's like a graphene sp2, sp3 nature?
Can you explain that? What you're talking about now?
Well, the pictures that Merrick.
Ah, you mean the way we do it in the vapor?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a combination of both, depends what's in there and what the position has the material. Yesterday, Armin has done a, what do you call it? Nano powder? What's the powder you used? Atomic copper. He has glued it to the surface of one of the cores which John has made. Is it sheets or is it a powder?
No, it's a powder. I mixed it
with the glue. Yeah. So what Armin has done has mixed the powder of atomic powder with glue, and is glued it on the surface of one of the reactors which John has made. On top of that, he's put a thin layer of copper as well. So we have seen coating in part, and part is not coated; it's scattered. And I explained to him this is what the glue has done, is blocked it, and it is partially copper oxide and partially it's copper nano. The difference in the color will tell you exactly if it's oxidized or not in the nano copper. And you have two different kinds. You have a green and you have a shade of blue-green. Is one is CO2 and one is CO. And there is another combination. It's a very, very pale, very CO. Yes. Stop. CO, not CO.
Thank you,
CO.
Rick.
Yeah. So you see, different depends what condition you soaked it. We've done a test with knowledge seekers. They put quite a large number of copper wire in their cover. Uh, they didn't take the plastic coating off, but they put the two ends of the wire in the Coca-Cola bottle. So it's a full closed circle. And we see a perfect nano coating without any oxidization, without any copper oxide. And all you need to do, you cut the two ends where it came in touch with the liquid in the bottle, and then you have a perfect the copper, nano copper in your layers inside. All you need to do, then you strip the plastic from the wire, and you find you get totally different kind of nanomaterial and the fat production and everything else with it. If you want a pure coating, always wrap it with something which has a carbon-hydrogen bond, a plastic. Even a tight cling film, but it has to be no air in it. And this happens with the wires. This is what I've been doing for years. To get a pure coating of one thing, I buy nickel wires, I buy aluminum wires. And I do it. We do high tension wires, which is done, we done those. And then the coating you get, you don't touch the cover. The maximum length is about 1 meter. You can get a coating for in about a week. But there's a way to do it, so you can literally coat the material inside the wire itself without ever removing it.
Mr. Kesh, have you done any coating under the vacuum condition?
Yes, it works. But you have to be very careful. Very, very careful, because I explained to somebody here, I think, if the liquid gets into your vacuum system, you lose your pump.
Right, so you'd have to use another chamber, like the pressure cooker that we talked about before, or equivalent type chamber to vacuum into, right?
Yeah, but then it still gets into the pump. Into your pump.
Yeah, we tried to vacuum some water one time. It's real fun to watch it boil at room temperature, but then it destroyed the oil in the vacuum pump, and of course it's about $10 or $15 worth of vacuum oil to change it, and so we had to change it.
Yeah, anything which has got the liquid in it is very hard to vacuum. But there is a way. I developed a way to do it. It's been done. It's the same. If you instead of doing electrode, I've said this before you're doing this copper taps, use copper plates. Cut the Coca-Cola bottle open from one end to another, and put different size of plates in different angle in respect to each other in the Coca-Cola bottle, and then seal it. And then put caustic in it. But make sure there are two ways to do it. You fill the whole thing up in one go, or you fill very little on the bottom that no liquid touches the plates. And then let it be there for maybe 2, 3, 4 days. Empty the liquid and take a measurement of the voltage current flow between the plates, and then take it to the garden or outside the house and put it on the floor, and take the measurement in the sun and take a measurement in the shadow from the bottle, but let it lie on the ground, not on the concrete, on the soil. And then you will understand the process of how much energy you can produce at nighttime. I showed this to I think to Marco a few weeks ago, outside.
Um,
Yeah, we have a bottle which has got these plates hanging in it.
would
And
you?
then you'll see.
Would you, in that case, would you have the electrodes actually touching the ground itself?
No. Just the plates.
Mhm.
Then you find out which angle plate gives you more energy. This is, and then you do it in the daytime and repeat in the same position at nighttime. You'll find out if you've done it the right way that you absorb more energy at night from the ground than the daytime. And this was the background to the 24-hour, what do you call it, solar cell systems, which we were, what do you call it, day and night plates, which we announced we were going to make, and the authorities in Belgium tried, and they literally blocked us for it for years. Yeah, Caroline tells me we got videos from it.
Well, it's interesting.
You will see that you create more energy at night than the daytime, and that's where the time you need the energy.
It's interesting. It's interesting that there is a new physics thing that just an information thing that came out recently, very recently, how physicists are now discovering ways to get energy off the Earth at night. They use the radiant energy from the Earth, and they use the blackness of the sky as a sink.
6-7 years ago.
Yeah, and the thing is, they're doing it in a very sort of funky way and not elegant at all with the way that you describe it. Well,
nothing is elegant about it.
Well, it is. Actually, when you use nanoparticles and they do it themselves in a way, and it's not elegant in terms of the process where you dump in some liquids and it sort of steams up and it's all sort of done and everything. But it is elegant in the sense that it's a minimal investment of labor. It's not really labor intensive. You allow it to happen, and that's where the elegance is. It's very simple. The particles, the nanoparticles, assemble themselves and line up and do what they're supposed to do as long as the conditions are there. So that's, I think, where the elegance comes in compared to, the hard approach of science where it's got to have a lot of complication to it, and you have to, make sure it costs a lot and so on.
In a way, you can repeat. If you put so many Coca-Cola bottles next to each other on the ground with different plates in it, you can produce enough energy to run a light. We done that a few years ago.
Let me ask.
The understanding is that the energy at night from the ground is more than daylight, is primarily due to the magnetic field of the sun. Gravitational magnetic field of the sun during the day suppresses the rays which come from the ground. That's why at night you absorb more energy from the ground, because the magnetic field, gravitational field force of the sun is not there, what we call the daylight, which is a field force. So it allows it to come further up enough that your systems can pick up. This is how we absorb most of our energy during the night, or our ancestors did. Now we sleep on these beautiful metal spring mattresses, and we catch all sorts of diseases.
So is that
sleep on the ground?
Is that similar to what you were saying about not attaching a wire to the ground? That would be sort of like that coil spring mattress you're talking about. It would not be appropriate. Like you're talking about putting the plastic of the bottle onto the ground, but it's the electrodes inside that absorb the magnetic energy. So you you wouldn't want any ground wire type connection, because that could actually mess things up, I suppose, in a sense.
We showed this principle openly in Eindhoven lecture. We showed the system with the spikes on it. I measured the current flow. The spike is a sphere with another sphere inside it, which I think about 37 spikes come out, and each one is connected internally to a measuring point outside, and the spikes which were coated with nanomaterial the way we do it now, the spikes which are facing the sun during the day were showing more power. The one underneath of the sphere, which were near the ground, were not showing that much. And then at night, I used to get up 1, 2, 3. My wife is laughing at me. She's talking crazy, man. I used to go out in the garden because I was set in the garden. And I used to measure the electrodes, the power they produce, all 37 of them. And you see 3 times more energy at night time from the electrodes on the ground side. And there is a shift point, it's between 5 and 7 o'clock in the afternoon, and 4 and 6 o'clock in the morning, where some sort of a balance comes, and then it shifts to the other side as the sun rays come up. I'll ask Marek to post this sphere. You can see it's in the lab somewhere. Then you can see how it's set up. Then you make a measurement, and you can make a system like this.
It seems to correspond with breakfast and dinner. I wonder if that has some sort of significance.
Maybe. Maybe that's the time we know it's time to eat. Yeah. Next question.
Well, perhaps we should start wrapping it up here pretty soon, but maybe we can
There is
ask
something I want
another
to talk
question or
about.
two.
Yeah,
Okay.
ask one question, and then there is something which I would like to bring up.
Great.
I have one more question. The magnetic field lines that we saw in the GANs at the bottom of the containers, is that the same as like the roadways and highways of the universe?
Pardon?
The magnetic field lines, when you have your plastic container and the GANs is at the bottom, and it separates into the magnetic field lines that you can see.
Yes, yes.
And the universe, is that like the highways of the universe that we'll travel on?
Soon you will understand.
Okay. Thank you.
This is the less line of friction. These are like the motorways in space. It's the fastest route to where you want to go, but you have to understand it. We will start looking and teaching these things in time to come. I was teaching the knowledge seekers this week in showing them the nano layers, how they are stacked up, and I think the pictures on the internet is a lot of you have seen all the frames of the reactors which are on the floor are in a specific configuration, a square frame. There is a reason for this configuration. In the near future, once we decide which reactors will go where in the position in respect to the lift, a number of reactors will be put on their side, which means they go on the secondary ring and they be feeding exit or entry into the center of the center core or outwards from the center core. In the defense technology of the craft, you need this, that it has to be protected and the direction of flow to be more extensive. This is the next step, how we allow the reactors to change position from vertical to the horizontal, depending on the fields going into them or out of them, to support or increase fields in certain direction. This targeting then will be used for these channeling travels in the space. The head, what we call the directional head reactors, in this when they go on their side, the reactors will absorb and will stay within the magnetic flow channels, which is we thought in the future. So we already started this week. I explained how it is and how it will be done, and why all the frames are in a square shape. Because the reactors will be put on the sideway, like the entry and the exit. If you target the exit point, which is the top of the reactor, in the direction of the center core hanging reactor, you can influence the forces within the reactor or increase the gravity or direction of flow, but I can use it as a way of the defense protection of the system. These all I start opening as they understand more. We open the more doors into the science. There is something which I would like to go through with. This is a lot to do what we're going to do in the next couple of weeks. One of my main concern has been the situation which is happening in Ukraine. And now one of the reasons I opened the paper at the oil, gas, and protein was that we know part of the concern and the situation with Ukraine is the fuel line into Europe from Russia. The European Union and all the European nations, if I understand what we have put on the offer on this table, with this protein, paper, oil and gas, within a matter of months or weeks, they can produce enough oil that their dependence on the export and the line of Ukraine and the cause of so much death can stop. So the purpose for releasing the paper of the oil, gas, and protein is not only showing how you can have the feed, but you can have the energy need, the demand of the present science, present what we call a state of art, that we have got so much dependent on oil and gas. And at the same time, in my last talk, I appealed to His Eminence the Pope as a military man and a head of the Christianity in the Catholic Church to request for the end of the wars. And today we have asked Ukrainian lady who's with us to extend our appeal to the Ukraine in a direct way, that there is no need for wars, there is no need for this killing which is planned to come up. The only people who are going to benefit by it, I was explaining to the knowledge seekers yesterday, the people who make the arms, they make little money, but the people who make more profit out of the whole structure will be the people who have to do the prayers for the last body to be buried. And these people make a lot of money out of it. There is more profit for the burial services than for actually killing the man. So our appeal goes to those people who understand what we are talking about. A bullet costs 10 cents, but a service church costs $1,000. I wonder who's making money and who's forcing the force of the wars. I think my message is very clear. There is no need for this planning war. I think people of this world have to become wise, that there is enough on this table with what we are releasing, that there is no need for what is planned to come and all this killing to be done. We know the landmines cost $1, but burying the daughter and son costs a lot of money. And the people who bury don't make that much effort. They just say a prayer and collect the money for it. So I wonder why the religious leaders of this, what we call planet Earth, do not put an end to the wars. Who is making more profit? The arm manufacturers or the houses of God? So my appeal goes to the Ukrainian people, and we put this appeal in Russian and Ukrainian language to do not destroy what you built, because you're not going to be the beneficiary. The only people who are going to benefit by it are the people who made the houses of God in the name of God in a false way. Because every single one of you have to pray, and your children have to go and pray in the same house and pray more. So I think we made it very clear. I give the headphone to our Armenian Russian knowledge seeker Armen to request for peace in Russia. And then we give it to the Ukrainian lady who just come back from Ukraine 2 days ago to appeal for peace.
Oh, shoot.
Who understands Russian? Здравствуйте. Я хочу говорить, что надо остановить эту войну, потому что многие люди погибнут, многие матери, они останутся без сыновей или без детей. Что мы хотим сказать, что эта технология поможет всем. Энергия, за это убивать людей. Я что видел тут, что я могу вам показать. Это очень-очень-очень simple, как легко получить все это. И за это убивать людей, по-моему, это не надо. По-моему, мы должны остановить на этом, чтобы все могут жить спокойно. Я хочу сказать, что political leaders, как you know, political leaders, политики, они должны остановиться на этом, что мы можем спокойно жить на этом планете. И это можно очень легко сделать. Пожалуйста, поймите меня в любом смысле, что я хочу сказать. И мы можем это показать очень легким, как вам сказать, легким движением руки. Это можно все изменить. Спасибо.
Доброго дня. Хочу вам трошки розказати про нашу роботу, яка відбувається в плані миру. І то, що відбувається зараз в Україні, в свій час гинуть люди, гинуть ваші сини, діти. І все це для того, що в світі панує політика, панують гроші. І розв'язати то питання, недостаток енергії, недостаток всіх проблем, які існують, можна розв'язати дуже легко. І фонд містера Кеш Foundation має плани і, відповідно, легко, практично одною рукою може розв'язати ті всі питання, якщо дивитися з точки зору, яку називає містер Кеш. Не вартує просто воювати задля того, що можна зробити звичайним простим шляхом. І, власне, Cash Foundation може показати дуже просто, як це все робиться. Зникнуть ті проблеми, необхідності і не будуть гинути люди не тільки в Україні, а в всьому світі. Дякую.
What I want to tell that, you know, all the political leaders, they have to a minute stop and think about it, because all this killing is nonsense. You know, this technology can really change all the humanity to better life, better way of thinking. You know, and what I explained in Russian, that with the movement of your hand, you can really stop this. And this technology can take humans for to next phase. for oil or for, energy. We kill people for nothing because it's so easy to create this kind of things for killing, I think another human fellow. It's going to be crime. That's all.
Hello, this is Ivan again. Mr. Keshe just passed the microphone to me. So we are finishing this workshop, and maybe it would be a good idea that everybody who's listening to this workshop joins in a prayer for peace. And wherever, so the more we concentrate thoughts for peace from all over the world, the sooner it will happen. Thank you.
Hello, good morning, everybody. I'm the wife of Mr. Keshe. I would like to ask if we can start by teaching our children, then we can change the future. I think that's the main part, not only changing the adults or trying to change them because they're already been brought up in a different way. But if we start teaching our children the correct way, I think we will achieve much faster peace in the future, not allowing them or by teaching them not to go and join the army or take any weapons up or do any violence to their friends or to their neighbors or to anybody. To talk the peaceful talk, the peaceful way. If we are approaching our children the correct way, we create the snowball effect. As I once, when I was in South Africa, I was talking to white South Africans. They were very horrible towards black people. He said, but that's how we've been brought up. That's how we've been taught. That's how we always behaved. I said, just take one step. I said, you're sitting next to me. If I can explain to you, because they had two little children, a boy and a girl, which were at the age of 6 and 7. I said, if you start teaching them to be gentle, to be understanding, to change their way, how they approach what they then called black children, I said, can you imagine how the black children will change, how your white children will change in interaction with the black children? I said, they will teach their children. They'll find a way that it doesn't need to go the harsh way. So if all of us, especially all the members of the Keshe Foundation worldwide, don't look outside, don't look outside your houses, what you can change politically, where you can change in those big ways of changing, please, there is one say, when you start with yourself and you teach it to your first in kind, which are your own blood, your children, the change will go much faster. Just teach your children at home, especially when they make wrong choices, when they make wrong decisions, explain them why. Don't just tell them off, no. We always advise our children, you cannot do this or you cannot do that, but we give the explanation why. Then they can make their own decision, and then that decision, they are responsible for how they carry it out. Not because you told so, not because they need to, because in the school, there is only one rule. When they go to school, just observe how your children are taught. They come in the school, and that's why so many children are going sick, because it goes against their nature. They have to sit down. They have to stay in line. They have to keep their mouth quiet. They have to go and play. You remember the repeat? They have to. Please explain them why they should. Then your children will go the right way. And please, when you have some time, start explaining the technology for as much as you know in a playful way to your children. Then when they get in touch with the technology a little bit further in their life, it's not an alien thing for them to handle it. But please, teach them peace among themselves. Bye. Thank you.
I think we bring this session to a close if it's okay with you and there are no questions.
I have just a quick question. Is it any movement with the institute which was supposed to be online?
We discussed this. We're going to do it all together when we open the institute on the 15th of September. Because then the sessions will be recorded and it'll be online most of the time.
Okay.
We had to abandon because of the situation which we had with the Belgian government. And because it wasn't certain if I would have been here. Now the whole thing is on one way or another on a halt as far as we understand. So we could not go ahead with that, but we are already talking about a peace conference to be held in the new institute in our center. We have a facility to accept about 1,000 people. But we had a meeting with the present owners yesterday. They are going to look into what dates we can be given. It cannot be in August, but if we can accommodate in July or be in September. And the teachings on the World Peace Conference by the world population, not the world leaders, will be held at the new institute. We are in line to take over the center on the 15th. And the structure is that we can more or less immediately go into operation from that day to teaching. So anybody who wants to be a knowledge seeker in the new institute, send your applications. And as we said, it's going to be, instead of being a 12 months or 24 months, it'll be 1 month courses too. So you can come in for 1 month. And most of the accommodation will be kept in the campus for the people who come for 1 month. So you don't need to look for accommodation as much as we can accommodate you. And a couple of other organizations around the center have confirmed to us they can accommodate to a few hundred people for us. But the teaching will start everything together in the center. The peace conference planned for the third week of September, second week of September, when we are in the center. And if it can be held outside on the ground of the, the center, because of the weather, it'll be held outside, otherwise it'll be held inside within the lecture rooms of the institute.
Okay, and I'd just like to mention to people that it would be probably a very good time to make donations to the Keshe Foundation. And what would be the best way for people to make donations? Is PayPal a good way that still works for...
The bank account, the PayPal or the bank account in Holland is both the same. It's all the same. Any donation will be done. We try to support the foundation ourselves internally, as we've done for years. And but now that we have a project for developing the spacecraft, and we have a plan now we have agreed on the purchase of the center for the foundation as a teaching center. The sum runs into millions. It's not in a few tens of thousands. So donations has to be whatever it is, but we saw the foundation is set up to support itself. The strange thing is when you say about donation, people come to the foundation for their health needs or whatever they call it, or they come for the systems. But when you ask them who's going to pay for the research, oh, it's not our fault, you find the money. I wonder where we're going to find money to build systems and run research, and they just want the benefit. It's a very, very interesting point that's been raised in the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I'd like to plea for people now is that you need money for research and you need money to do these major projects, and the more that the people of Earth support you and the Keshe Foundation, the more results we're going to get back in terms of that investment. If it's given, freely, that is.
You got to the new. I was explaining yesterday. We had a meeting here in this upstairs. Every day the institute is open from 15th of April. Sorry, 15th of September. 5 days a week. Every day which is open. At 9 o'clock in the morning, we have to find 10,000 euro. That is the running cost of the institute per day. We done a calculation. It's not something theoretical because the place has been running for past 20 years as a hotel. Expenses are fixed. We know what carries on with us, what doesn't carry on with us. So every day, 12 hours of operation or 10 hours of operation, 9 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night, the foundation cost is at 1,000 euro an hour. Every day. That's including the heating, the teaching, because as I explained to the knowledge seekers, the teachers at the Knowledge Seekers Center at the Space Institute will not be paid the meager wages that they just give their life for humanity and live in poverty. They'll be paid well according to the way we do, the same as what we set up the center here for. It has to be correct. Everything with the foundation has to be correct. So we don't, even the rooms and accommodations in the center which we can provide, the hotel room cost here in this area at the moment is between 150 to 250 euro per night. So if we take over and let the rooms out, we can make good money out of it. But we have designed, we have set up a structure that it will cost around just about 15 euro per night for a student to stay in the center. That's heating, everything else which they need, the room, the changing of the sheets and everything else. This one of the impossibilities, but at the same time, as I said yesterday, we try to accommodate at least 20-30% of the knowledge seekers from the countries which are financially incapable to do. So not only we accommodate them, we teach them freely too. So all this has to come from somewhere. I don't see any governments paying to make themselves blocks. So it has come from humanity to help humanity. So when we accept 250 students for September, which is the target for the first year, 1/3 or so will come from the third world nations. We choose the people who can't afford, but they have the talent and knowledge to contribute to the institute and to their own nation. So these all have to be calculated. I don't know where people think the foundation has to do everything free. We've done it up to now, but now it's gone into an international level. So collectively we need to support it, because if I pull the plug, the foundation will collapse tomorrow. And I've done that for years. And I have no intention of, but on the other hand, it has to come in a way. Everybody is waiting to see a flying machine, then they might contribute. They're waiting for power generation. You receive today the full protein, food, and the energy and oil. Now start producing oil and sell it at $100 per barrel to your country. You don't understand what's in your hand, what is being offered on the table. Any other question, or we close?
Well, I think we probably should wrap it up for now.
Thanks very much, Rick.
Thank you all from the Spaceship Institute there, all the knowledge seekers, thank you very much for your time tonight, or this morning, whichever the case may be.
Can I give a small peace message to our friends and colleagues on human race in Ukraine?
Absolutely.
Instead of burning your buildings and burning each other and killing each other, go out and hug each other today. You'll go a longer way. I know it'll be put less money in the coffers of the people who are burying you, planning to bury you, but at least it allows your children to enjoy you more time and your parents to enjoy you more times. It's the youth of the nation which get killed, and these are the assets of the nation. Teach your people. If you are people who are in influence in Ukraine, just ask them to change the shouting to cuddles and kissing each other. Nationality frontiers are finished with this technology. Russian, Ukrainian, you all be flying across each other like nothing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kesh. Okay,
We'll speak next week. You're welcome. You. Bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mr. Kesh.
Bye. Mr. Cho?
Yes.
Hi. We got to speak later on today or tomorrow. Yeah, I need to speak with you urgent.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
What about soon after this meeting?
No, I'm
Should
not
I call
ready.
you
I'm
on
going to
Skype?
have a chat. No, tomorrow at 12 o'clock we can have a Skype. My time.
12 o'clock your time? 12 noon?
Yes. Yeah. Is it too late for you?
No, well, actually it's not because I'm planning to go to Hong Kong. That's why.
Okay. We can speak on Saturday if you want, or next Monday.
Yeah, Saturday would be good. Saturday would be good.
Saturday we are not available.
What time
no.
Saturday?
Monday 12 o'clock, please.
Okay, fine.
Yeah,
Monday 12
because
o'clock.
we are transferring the Space Institute to you, so I have to organize it that you take it over. Yeah. Okay. Thanks very much. Thanks, Mr. Cho. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. So ends the 9th Knowledge Seekers Workshop. Thanks everybody on live stream for attending and being in the chat. And we'll have another workshop, no doubt, next week at this same time. Bye for now.